Good morning, this is a short screencast to show you how to configure a brand new store in Shopify. This screencast forms the basis of several other screencasts. I thought I would release this section by itself for anyone who's interested just in using the Shopify admin screens to create the products, collections and navigation that you need to set up your store from scratch. Here we have an absolutely vanilla store. There's nothing in it whatsoever. I've created this as a development store. It's got the title Generally Uncomplicated. And the process we're about to go through is very much the same for more or less all of the uncomplicated apps. We're going to use Shopify's products, collections and navigations admin user interfaces or admin UIs to create products, collections and navigation. This section of the screencast is designed to show you how to use Shopify's admin screens. They are a little bit complicated. We're going to move between several different screens. They are prone to change in design because Shopify does this. It evolves its design, it evolves its UIs. And so if you're looking at the screencast and you notice that it's slightly different from what Shopify are using now, the essence of it is very much the same. We're using it to create products, collections and navigation, and while the screens might change a little bit, the essence is very much going to be stable within Shopify. Those are the basic elements for creating products and organizing them so your customers can find them. This is interface, as you say, is created by Shopify. All the changes are orchestrated by Shopify. It's nothing to do with my apps, but I provide the screencast to try to give you that holistic view and make it really easy to get set up for your store. Shops tend to feature loads of these elements. So any single shop will probably have loads of products, loads of collections, loads of navigation. In providing this screencast, I didn't want to do this hundreds of times. I didn't think it was useful to show you the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to create a few products, a few collections, a bit of navigation, and demonstrate the principle. Then I'm going to skip through the repetitive bit where I do it lots of times in order to build out the rest of my store, because I don't think it's meaningful or interesting to show that. But when you're creating your products, collections and navigation, I encourage you to do it a few at a time. There are some batch interfaces, so we're going to use those batch interfaces to create lots of products, for example. But when creating collections and navigation, I think it's a really good process to create a few things, check it out in the front end of your store, your storefront, and make sure that it looks the way you want it to look. So when working with one of the uncomplicated apps, follow this process a little bit and then move into the app, have a look at the impact, and we're going to do that in this screencast. So, first thing is products. If I go into the product section here, it shows there are a couple of different ways of creating products. One is to use the add product form. Now this works one field at a time, essentially creating one product at a time. It takes a little while to work through it. It allows you to upload images, to put a price on your product, set the inventory, work through the shipping. All that kind of stuff, create variants and so on, but it's fundamentally for one product at a time. What I like to do is use the import feature to import multiple products at the same time. To create them many at the same time, we're going to use the sample CSV template that's provided by Shopify. So if I download that CSV template, I want to save it as a file. I can save it as a file to downloads, and now I'm going to open that file up. I'm using OpenOffice. You could be using Microsoft Excel, whatever. But when you open it, you'll see a spreadsheet that looks fundamentally like this. Those same fields are there, handle, title, body, and so on. But rather than being individual fields in a form and having to do it one product at a time, we can create multiple products as different rows. So I have filled out this sample template and I've produced my set of some, I think about 50, 60 products. I've given them handles, I've given them titles, I've set up imaginary vendors and so on, and this sheet, as I say, contains something like 40, 50, 54 products. So I'm now going to upload this by going browse, uncomplicated, upload file. That CSV will now be parsed by Shopify to check that it makes sense. It tells me there are 53 products, that makes sense too. I start the import process, and now in the background Shopify is importing all those products. While that's going on, I can do other things. I can close this box and I'll get an email, or I can wait here on the product page and it will eventually show. This will create products, and that means that instantaneously I have a store. Everything I need is more or less there in the store. I can go to my storefront and see the products I've put into the store, but fundamentally they're not very well organized. Everything I'm going to suggest you do from now on is based around organizing those products. The mechanisms that Shopify provides for that are collections. And we're going to put those products, there we go, they've been imported. We're going to put those products into collections, and then I'm going to show how you can use Shopify navigation to link those collections together. Depending on whether you want to go further with that, you can then use some of the uncomplicated apps to build on top of this Shopify navigation to create multiple levels of navigation. We're going to talk about different levels. And how those items are created and managed. You can create whole category trees and use some of our category apps if they suit you. But the fundamental thing we're doing here is applying only to Shopify. This is general Shopify admin user interface, and so far we haven't done anything other than that. So the process of putting products into collections is a little bit painstaking. Just one collection is created by default, which is the homepage collection. When I create a collection, I've got a choice in terms of how that is created. I can give that a title such as photography. I can write a description about my photography collection. And then I get into this section of the page which talks about conditions. Now there are two ways to put products into collections. You can either do it automatically based on conditions, and these conditions can be defined on a bunch of things. One of the things I've seen work very effectively is where you tag each one of your products and then use those tags to create the collections. So if I select here the product tag, I can say it is equal to whatever, and I can type in a product tag, and that will become the condition for this collection. That means that whenever I update my product catalog and I'm adding new products to it all the time, those products are automatically being put into collections based on the tags that I'm adding to them. It's a very simple and transparent, straightforward way of doing it. I haven't tagged my products in this example, so I'll be putting them in manually, and that means that I'm going to select one product at a time or several products at a time to put them into a collection. So if I go and create photography and then save, that's now created this photography collection for me, and it's added this screen, products, this little panel, products, which allows me to search for a product. So I can type in here camera, and I can see there are some cameras that I've got in my product catalog, and I can add those products to my collection by just clicking on them. So I'm going to put all of those in here, 5 products added, and now that's it. That is the process for creating a collection, and I will just go through it a few more times. One of the things I added here was lots of products, because this is one of my top level collections. So I'm putting all of my products into a top level collection, but I'm going to create more collections that are refined views of that. These are going to become the subcategories when we look at the navigation and actually get this stuff all structured. So one of the things I have within photography is lighting equipment. So I'm going to go back to collections. I can either go back to collections, I think I can just create another one here, create another collection. The collection I'm going to create this time is called lighting equipment, and this is an example of another manual collection, save collection. Now there is no relationship so far, no relationship whatsoever between photography and lighting equipment. They are just two independent collections. If I go to my collection view, I see them as two separate collections. It so happens that in photography I've put some products. If I go into lighting equipment, I now can see this product panel, and in here I can look for Speedlight, which I know is some of the products I've got in here, and I've got another one called Chrome. And if I select that Chrome floor light, then now I've got 3 products in this collection. So far, we've only gone so far as to create a couple of collections, photography and lighting equipment, and to place some products within those collections. There's no relationship between the two of them. We haven't created any kind of hierarchy. We've got the beginnings of some categories here, but there's no kind of ordering or relationship between the categories. The ordering comes from navigation. So in this screencast we talked initially about products, we've now looked at collections. The next step is to go to navigation, which is where we build the relationship between those collections. Navigation lives in online store, and in here I can see the elements already. So I've got only the default navigation that's set up so far, a main menu and a footer menu. I always think it's quite helpful to look at the storefront at this point, and you can see here is my main menu. It's got just 2 items in it, home and catalog, and if I go down to the bottom of the page, I think that's my footer menu with search in it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start creating menus that give me this this structure, this ordered structure, so I can link to the categories. In my main menu, I'm going to create the first level menu items. So these are things like the first level of category that I've got in my site. So we created one already called photography, and it's asking me for a link. Now the link can be to a bunch of things. It can be to the homepage, it could be a search, it could be to products or pages. What I want to link to from my photography menu item is the photography collection. So I clicked on collections there, and here it's showing me a list of the collections. Now this is very simple because I've only created a few at a time. I recommend creating a few at a time. It makes it much easier to see what you're doing and to get used to the process. But the collection I want to link to from the photography menu item is the photography collection. So that is done. I'm not going to add filter tags. I recommend not using tags to filter collections because it means they're not proper collections, and that will impact things like product counts, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. In the meantime, I'm going to add that, and now I can see that photography item appears in there. I've got a couple of other top level ones. I'm going to just add these in here now. So technology is another one of my top levels. I haven't created a collection for that one yet, but I'll just add it in. Oh, it needs to link to something, so I'll make it link to the homepage for now. I'm also going to add film and TV. That too can link to the homepage for now. And that gives me my 3 top level collections. Let's have one more. Home audio. I'll capitalize that. Okay, so that gives me the beginnings of a menu. I'm going to take out catalog because I'm not using that. It's one of the default items. I don't think it adds much at the moment, but I've got essentially a main menu that contains a home link, photography, technology, film and TV, and home audio. Again, at this point, I think it's helpful to keep checking the front end of the site. So I'm going to save the changes I've made to the main menu so far. Then I'm going to go to the front page of the site, Control F5 on a PC, Apple R on a Mac to refresh. And what I've got here is a main menu that's starting to appear with items. Most of these items are linked to home, so technology was linked to home, film and TV, home audio, all so far linked to home. But photography, we link to a collection. We link to the photography collection. And if I click photography, it takes me to that collection. So I've got some products in here now. I've got a collection. It's linked from one of the menu items. The next step for me is to start thinking about the subcategory I created. So within photography there was lighting equipment, but right now I can't see that anywhere. What I want to do is create a menu item at one level down from photography, which is going to be a second level menu item, and that's going to be to the lighting equipment. So to do that, back into the admin interface, I'm going to add a menu item. I'm going to call it lighting equipment. I'm going to say links to a collection. I'm going to select the lighting equipment collection and add. Then I'm going to drag this up the list because I can reorder these very easily. And I'm going to move it just here to sit between photography and technology. Now at this moment, all of these menu items are at the same level. They are all the first level. So if I drag this one in, something happens. This little glyph appears here next to photography and shows that I'm actually about to make this change. If I leave it here on the left hand side, it stays at the same level. If I drag it in, it becomes a nested item within photography. So now I've got my first level menu items, photography, technology, film and TV, home audio, but I've also created a second level, things like lighting equipment. I'm going to add a couple of other menu items in here, such as cameras. Again, I'll leave that as a link to the home page for now. That will do. Move that up so it sits at the top there. Create another menu item, tripods. Again, leave that as a link to the home page for now. So I've got the photography part of this navigation, photography parent category with a few subcategories underneath it. At the moment, only lighting equipment and photography linked to anything, but that's fine. And again, I've got unsaved changes, so I'm going to save them. Because I've made this change, the next step is to see what the impact is. If I go back into the storefront and refresh, now I've got a glyph that appears next to photography, and when I click it, I see a submenu. Now this is default behavior in this theme. Depending on what theme you're using, the default behavior will be different. If you're using menus uncomplicated, the menus will appear automatically, and we're going to look at creating further levels of menus in a second. If you're using categories uncomplicated, you're probably going to have this category list feature on the left-hand side, or floating category list where it floats over the top, or category breadcrumbs if that's what you're trying to create. But depending on what the app is you're using, the display will be slightly different. But in essence, the creation process looks exactly the same. We're trying to create the three things: products, collections, and navigation, and they're all done within Shopify. None of these things is done within the uncomplicated app. The uncomplicated app stitches these things together, and we're going to see that in a second, but in Shopify we get the basic elements. So now what I've created is a basic set of products, collections, and navigation. I hope this screencast has been useful in helping you get set up. Please take a look at the uncomplicated apps, and best of luck with your store.